Hello everyone, this is Catherine Holland, Indestructible Soul, and tonight I'm going to be speaking to you about your life without limits. And this time I'm going to be looking at the connection between inspiration and our imagination. So to begin with, I shall talk about who I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing, to give you a little bit of an idea in case you don't know. And then I will be talking about what Rebirthing Breathwork is, which is my main modality that I use, and it's the most transformational technique that I've come across, and it's something I've been using now for 25 years. Then I shall go on to describe how breathwork fits in with the topic that I'm talking about, the inspiration and the imagination and creativity, and the fact that it is a spiritual experience. Breathing and our spirit are completely intertwined. I'm going to talk about that, and also a little bit about why the rebirthing technique, breathwork technique, is so important. And I'm aware that most of you were planning to listen to a recording, which is a good job because I fluffed up and I turned off somehow. I still haven't got used to Google Hangouts on air properly. I managed to turn off the live and therefore the recording screen because there were two screens at the same time. So I do apologise if you were planning to watch live and you were planning to come in later on the call, because this is just a screen recording I'm doing now, which I will post up on YouTube in place of the original Google Hangouts on air. But I shall cover the same material, and it does also mean that I won't be able to take any questions, for which I apologise. Another time. I love to have questions, and I have a question and answer down this side of your screen. There's normally a question and answer box, so I should be covering my material, and of course if you wish to ask me any questions at all, please feel free to do so. And then towards the end of the call, I'm going to tell you about what I do and how you can work with me if you would like to. I am doing these calls regularly. I'm doing them every 2 or 3 weeks at the moment, and just gradually covering all of the different areas that personal growth, spiritual growth involves, and particularly with the big emphasis for me on the breathwork and the rebirthing breathwork, which is the thing that I find so transformational. And although I've been doing it a long time, it's still wonderfully transformational for me, and I'm really happy about that. And then I will tell you at the very end about the next date for the next webinar. So to begin with, let me tell you a bit about me. My name's Catherine Holland, and I have a programme called Indestructible Soul, and this is based on the work that I've done over the years, and particularly recently from an experience I had where I was hit by a car after many years of practicing breathwork and running my own practice. I had this serious accident in which I should have died, and I didn't realise that until a long time later when I started doing some research and the facts about the accident itself and the fact that I lost half my blood and all these various things, which brought to my attention the fact that I had created in myself some super or extraordinary health that was able to withstand something that the rest of the population don't seem to. I mean, I'm sure there are 1 or 2 others, but that's the impact that came upon me. That was the experience that I had, was that I had created something very unusual. Let me just pull my screen down a bit because I'm fidgeting to try and be in the right place on it. So, rebirthing, to talk about me first. I have been a breathwork practitioner for 25 years. I have also in that time run an injury clinic, a pain clinic for people who had suffered particularly compound and chronic injuries as a result of the accident that I had. I got interested in it, and for the last 14 years I ran a clinic doing that, which I've now finished doing. Instead, I'm now running the virtual pain clinic, which you can ask online if you would like some practical techniques on how to deal with painful injuries of your own. But I'm really focusing on the whole person, and particularly the connection between the physical experience and the spiritual experience, which is my primary interest and has been all along. So I became really interested in the food that I eat, my general health, managing to stop myself from having asthma, from sorting out loads of skin problems I had. You can see my skin is now lovely, but I used to have a lot of eczema and I had asthma, so I was an atopic person with quite a lot of allergies to things, and also an allergy to cow's milk protein, which led me to look at different diets and going through vegetarian. In the end, I was vegan for a long time, and actually now, and since my accident, I've explored further in a different direction, and now almost all of my food is raw. So that's been another journey. I thought veganism was as far as you could go, but it isn't. So those are some of the things about me. I used the breath work, and to my delight I found that my asthma disappeared. But I used the breath work because I was facing the fact that my marriage was going to end and that I was afraid of living alone. I had 3 young children at the time. So for me it was an emotional and mental experience that I was setting out on. And I learned along the way that it was also a spiritual experience, which was wonderful, wonderful indeed. And I'm very happy that I did it. It's opened huge gates and vistas for me to explore this wonderful experience that we have here on earth, which appears to be a temporary one and merely one step on a life path that has many steps. So that's some of me and about how I came into breathwork. And then I would just like to talk about this accident because it brought to my attention the extraordinary health that I'd given myself, because first of all I survived on several counts, and then after some big operations and particularly large skin grafts, I had 100% take of a skin graft, which I discovered when I listened to the nurses who were doing their report on it was an impossibility, because there was no space on their form for 100% take, and they refused to believe what they were looking at. So that was an education for me. And I didn't start to write any of this down for 14 years. It was only last year when I started writing. The accident was in 2000. And during that experience of writing the story, it occurred to me all of the extraordinary events that had taken place and what my part was in that, and the centrality of the work that I had done already, that meant that I first of all survived and then made a truly wonderful recovery. I was hit by a car and my left leg was smashed. I was on a 125 motorcycle, Honda 125 CG, which I'd only had for 6 weeks, and I'd done my CBT 3 weeks before to allow me to ride on the road. And this car drove into me out of a left-hand turning and drove straight into me. I mean, he put his full acceleration on to get through a gap in the traffic. It was a big car, it was a BMW, heavy car. And I obviously appeared to be a gap in the traffic to him. He was very drunk. He'd been clearly drinking in the pub all evening, and his wife was also very drunk because she got out of the car and said, "Oh, you're all right," and went to get back in to drive away. I don't know, maybe she didn't see the pool of blood in the road, but I was losing blood very fast. Fortunately, it's only about half a mile from the ambulance station, and the police patrol that road. It was 10:30 on a Thursday night, I think. I don't remember the exact date on purpose, actually. I don't want to set up any sort of anniversary, although I'm living in the area at the moment, so I ride past there frequently, and I no longer have the experience of my heart missing a beat, which is nice, and I have had no nightmares. I've had no sort of traumatic distress or repetition, or, I don't think I've even dreamed about it. And I put that down to my ability to process any experience that I'm having in the moment. When I was in the road and I was bleeding hard and I had the experience of travelling out of my body and the choice as to whether to carry on to the place where there was no pain, because I'd left the pain behind and I was away from my body, and I had this question: would you like to travel down the path where there is no pain, or would you like to go back and see your children grow up? And I knew full well that the brunt of the pain would come back, which was absolutely huge and so great that I didn't know where it was coming from. I had no idea it was only my leg that had been smashed. I didn't know where I'd been hit at all. So have a drink of water. So on the back of that experience of writing the story, I've written a guide called Indestructible Health, which is free to download from my website. It's also available on Kindle, but you can't make things free in the same way on Kindle. So I think it's £1.99, so that's $2.99, I guess. And for somebody in Australia, I don't know the exchange, so maybe you'd like to go to the website and download it free. That's absolutely fine. It's meant to be a free guide. The lessons that I learned, it's only 6 pages. That's meant to be free to people to understand that it's possible to gather such a wealth of health knowledge that you can overcome anything, which is the lesson that I've learned, is that it's possible for me to do absolutely anything, including coming back from the dead, which is pretty extraordinary. So the book that I was writing is called Indestructible Soul, which is the name of my programme, but it's subtitled How I Decided Not to Die. And that is a book in its own right. It's about 120 pages, something like that, and that's available on Kindle. It's also going to be a paperback soon, but I've not finished the conversion and the cover design and all the stuff you have to go with it to make a paper book, but that will soon be available on Amazon from CreateSpace, so that's in the works. It is available in a PDF if you apply to me, but while it's on Kindle's promotion, I am not allowed to make it available on the website, so you can apply to me and then I can tell you how to get hold of a copy of that. It's $1.99, that's pounds, $2.99 in dollars, and I guess about the same in Australian dollars, I'm not sure, but I saw names of people who'd signed up from Australia, so I'm sure you'll be listening to the replay because I think it's 5 a.m. where you are now, and I understand that you wouldn't want to get up. Maybe you would, but anyway, maybe you wouldn't to listen to this. So that's where I've come from, and that's why I'm here talking to you tonight. And the presentation is Your Life Without Limits, and this is because of what I've seen that I've created, and it appears to be limitless. I have a very strong connection with my body, my spirit, my life force, my energy force, my intuition, which is something I deliberately developed when I was doing my breath work. So let me tell you a little about that now. The Rebirthing Breathwork practice, see the demonstration? It's continuous. It's a circular connected breathing. And in a moment I'll do a little demonstration with you because it really is quite simple. It's not always easy to do though, because you find when you have emotions, issues, challenges that you're trying to move through, that we hold our breath. This is one of the mechanisms that we learn from Western birth practice, where we are brought into the world and learn to breathe in quite a stressful way. In some of these webinars, I talk about that in more detail. But today I think I'll just be a few moments talking about that, because I want to talk more about the process of inspiration today. And that is that when we are born, the oxygen supply comes from the placenta, from our mother, through the umbilical cord. And nature intends for the umbilical cord and the blood coming from the mother containing oxygen to continue while the baby learns to breathe. Okay, so the independence of the baby isn't complete until they're breathing fully. And it doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen with one huge breath. Not naturally anyway, not in the gentle biological sense. And that's why the overlap happens, so that the baby can learn to breathe gently. It's just been through a huge experience, which is it's well prepared for, but it's fairly traumatic. Even if all is well, the baby gets squeezed in this huge way, and this is, I mean, obviously to get out of the mother's body, but it has the effect of compressing the chest, clearing all the fluid out of the chest. And once the chest is out of the mother's body and can expand freely, the baby can begin to breathe. Some babies do that as they come out of their mother, but a lot don't, including those babies who still have the sac, the amniotic sac around them. They can't breathe until that's been removed. And unfortunately, we tend to cut the cord before the baby's properly breathing. And that creates this stress, because the baby has to breathe in suddenly its very first time, those delicate tissues, which I'm sure it's quite painful when you first do it. And I could perhaps liken it to trying to stand on my poor injured leg the first time, which was amazing. The pins and needles were so huge and so painful. And I imagine that's what it must be like for a little tiny baby, first breathing on those fresh lungs when it's done suddenly. It's meant to be gentle. So with that in mind, if we first breathe in suddenly in a state of shock and terror, because we're suffocating, because our oxygen supply has been cut off, that's how we perceive the world. That's how we come into the world, and it sets up our feeling about new experiences. It sets up our feeling about meeting people for the first time, our relationships, our relationship with the world, our conclusions about why that might have happened that way. All of those things in the tiny new baby's formulating mind bring in a whole load of associations which we keep for the rest of our lives. So within the Rebirthing Breathwork, and I use the full name Rebirthing Breathwork because that's the type that I learned. Many others have developed since I learned. In the last 10 or 15 years, certainly, quite a lot of other styles have emerged. And they all have the trademark, the stamp of their particular founder, who has an idea of a particular way it should be done. And I particularly like the rebirthing method that I was taught because there aren't any rules. The breath is connected. That has to happen because that's the way that we are designed to breathe. That's what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to breathe in and then out, and then in, and then out, and then in, and then out. That's how it's supposed to be. And doing that, when we didn't learn it when we were born, brings back to us the memory, the feeling memory of the reasons why we didn't. And if we do it with somebody accompanying us, which is the rebirther's job, then we are able to heal those experiences, which is a truly, truly profound thing. It's the name rebirthing comes from the fact that about 80% of people remember their birth in the process, which I did. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And my rebirther said to me, it's a sign that you're moving along well if you do remember your birth, which was lovely. And for other people, of course, that may not be their biggest experience that they need to heal. So, the 20% of people who don't, perhaps that's because it isn't the most important thing to them. And there are some other lovely things about Rebirthing Breathwork. And, excuse me, I have written a book called Rebirthing Breathwork, Creating an Independent Adult, which is on Amazon Kindle and in paperback as well. And if you look on my website, you can find the details. And then there I explain the process, which is consciously connecting your breath and allowing the feelings, because that's the key to the things that we need to heal. And then we go on to integrate those experiences so the experience becomes a part of us, which is a little bit like it becoming our history. So instead of only having the birth that we remember in our body and in our experience as a traumatic time, we also then have a new experience of being conscious and enjoying it and being curious and watching it, which travels along with our first experience and defuses the tension and means that we can then breathe fully with any new experience, which is wonderful. Wonderful in the emotional sense, but also in the practical sense. If you have an accident and you keep breathing, then you maintain your oxygen intake, which is what you need when you've just had an accident, rather than holding your breath with shock, which doesn't enable you to survive so well. So there are good reasons for it, separate from the wonderful psychological work that we can do. So going on from there, I've explained a bit about the breath work and what happens with it. And the last part of it is that it is totally individual, absolutely personal. So whatever happened to me in my Rebirthing Breathwork experience might not necessarily happen to you. And whatever happens to people who come to me, they bring their own story, they bring their own experience, they bring their own family history. And our bodies tell the story. We don't actually need to talk. We usually do, people love to, but you don't have to. It's a body experience. It's a integrative experience. It's a breath experience. And in our breath and in holding our breath, we hold all our emotions. We hold all of our feeling of that experience, of our understanding, of our integration of that experience. So you can begin to see what a total, what a whole body thing this breathing is, what a whole experience it is, because it isn't just bodily. Our breathing is the spirit going in and coming out, because from our first breath, where we have our independent life, to our last breath, when we move on, that breathing accompanies the spirit being within us, in this place, just here, where my body is. And that's quite a magical, what's the word I want? An inherent factor of the breath. So let me move on now to the part where I would like to talk about, excuse me, so I drink. Just plugging my phone in because it's my clock. So while you're recording, you can't see your clock. So let me just run my brain back to where I was. Oh yeah, I was going to do the little breathing exercise, wasn't I? Let's do that first. So the breathing exercise to demonstrate the breath work, conscious connected breathing, is called 20 breaths. And what you do is you breathe in and out 20 times in 4 groups. The first 4 breaths, short breaths. The last breath in the group is a long breath. And then you do that 4 times. So I'm going to count on my fingers so that I remember what I've done. Okay. So the first 4 breaths are shorter breaths and then one long one, 4 times. Begin now. Excellent. I'm so glad I invented that system. I think that's the first time I've got it spot on while recording. Good. So how do you feel? Do you feel a little lightheaded? Do you feel energised? Do you feel a little bit of buzzing going on in your body? How do you feel? It's quite exciting, isn't it? Really alive feeling. I like it. Okay. You can do that through your nose or through your mouth, as long as it's connected and you use the same one. Okay. You can use that when you want to go to sleep. You can use that when you'd like an idea for something. You can use it when you're feeling wound up, if you're in a traffic jam. You can use it anytime you like. It just gives you an idea of connecting your breath. An actual breathing cycle is about an hour, just to give you an idea. So now let me move on to the inspirational part of this. This is something which people will very quickly realise is the boon of doing breathwork. It gives you a really physical experience of the unity between our body, our mind and our spirit. You really get a dreamlike state. You get a meditative state very quickly. You get an inspirational state very quickly. You have healing experiences. You have experiences of unity, oneness with the universe, that sort of thing. And the word inspiration, certainly in the British language, I don't know about in other languages, means a wonderful idea. It means a eureka moment. It means a moment of genius, when you feel so totally connected with all that you are. You feel completely at one, and that as though ideas are really flowing through you and you can't write them down fast enough. It happens a lot when I'm writing books, and I love that feeling of being able to sit and put the ideas down as fast as they're coming. My typing isn't that quick, but it's so exciting. It's lovely. Somebody I know who's writing at the moment was saying the other day that she gets up an hour early and then she can't wait to start. It's just such a lovely feeling of the excitement of the ideas and the flowing of our wish to share. It's so lovely. And I was a bit disappointed when I first realised the inspiration and my ideas don't come from me, or at least from the me that I'm familiar with here, right now, sitting in this chair. I was a bit disappointed because I sort of prided myself on my inventiveness and my intuition, and that it was mine. And I think I've come to terms with now that it's okay, because there's another part of me that has a channel through to the place where the inspiration comes from, and it's my spirit, and my spirit is connected to the grand spirit or the divine or whatever you want to call the universal energy that creates us and creates the earth and creates all the planets and all the stars. And I find that wonderfully inspiring too, that we are created from the same material as stars. We really are stardust. So that's giving you a little bit of an idea about how I view the process of inspiration, and how I believe that it comes to us. And there are things that we can do to help ourselves to be in the receptive mode, to wait for that to happen. And the most important thing that I've learned is that the emotional state that I am in, a state of grace or gratitude, is the place where I can be open to that. And to produce that most easily, I have found the best way is to encourage myself to feel those emotions that are associated with the thing that I'm creating. So if I'm choosing to create a new book, for example, or a new webinar, a new project, then to feel how I know I'll feel when I'm doing that. The excitement. I'm excited. I'm wonderful. I'm brilliant. I'm energetic. I'm wise. All of these things come to me when I consider those topics. And in that consideration and in that space, I'm then open to the way that it will happen. And I've certainly been guilty in the past, and I see so many people doing it, of trying to work out how it's going to happen as soon as I've thought of the thing I'd like to create. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to do it all at once. It's okay. So, just looking at the time now and having a drink. So I hope I've covered a little there for you to feel inspired, to perhaps explore ways that you know that you can bring inspiration for yourself, and to know that if you aren't certain about something, putting yourself in that place will bring the ideas to you. And getting involved in something else while you're waiting, I'm sure you've noticed that, when we busy ourselves, even with the washing up or the hoovering, which are things that I don't particularly enjoy. I don't like cleaning at all. But I use that as an experience to free my channel, my creative channel. And fortunately, because I live in a small place at the moment, it doesn't take long. And so during that time, or lying in the bath, during that time, in that place where I'm receptive, the ideas will flow and I'll be open to them. And that's lovely. And we know we can do it. It's grand. Let me now move on to explaining how you could work with me if you would like to. I'll just recap what I've run through. In the beginning, I wanted to tell you a bit about myself and to talk about rebirthing breathwork in particular. This is my main modality, and it's the foundation of a 3-month program that I'm going to tell you about in a moment. And then I went on to explain to you about how and why breathwork is important and how particularly useful it is. And for me, it's really the most fundamental technique. And I'd just like to add on to that the fact that I see so many people working at personal growth as time goes on more and more, and they are often trying to overlay a technique onto past history which hasn't been resolved. And the lovely thing about breathwork for me is that it goes right down through all of those layers. And because of the nature of using your breath, you will automatically include your body, your mind and your spirit. So there is no chance of it being an overlay of anything, which is wonderful. You do need to do it with somebody. That's the most important thing, because the fact that we were unsupported when we were born, and that people took action which was not helpful to us, is something that we then need somebody to support us with when we go through the process of consciously working through it. And for that, we do recommend 10 sessions. You don't have to have 10, but that's the number to give you an idea of what it takes to get to a place where you can happily and comfortably do it alone. So that's the aim, and that's what my book is about. My book also covers quite a lot of the things that we do to our young children, babies, which are unhelpful and quite often unintentionally unhelpful. So that's part of what's in the book, and of course what I talk about with people when I'm working with them personally. So the programme has 2 levels. Indestructible Soul programme. You can do a 28-day programme, or you can do the 3-month programme. The 28-day programme is for you if you have a particular issue that you wish to work on quickly, and you don't necessarily want to learn the breathwork technique, but you do wish to begin to explore working with me and the way that I teach about, for example, raw food, or some of the conscious and spiritual ways that I work that are particularly inspirational for you. And those things we do in a 28-day programme. The 3-month programme is really designed to teach you the breathwork, the rebirthing breathwork that I learned. And it's all done online, so it doesn't matter where you live in the world. And I'd like to talk about what it can bring you. So starting off with a VIP day, which is a day where we work very closely together for a number of hours. It's sort of 4 or 5 hours. A very long process for you to completely feel that you have the freedom rolling out in front of you to explore everything that you would like to achieve. And that's such a wonderful, rich, glorious feast of time to give yourself to explore that step, that big step you'd like to take to progress on your spiritual path. It's really lovely. And that's in both of the programs. That's the beginning of both of the programs. I think in each of them I would offer a breathwork session, but in the 3-month program I would expect you to want to go on with that, because each week for 4 weeks in the 28-day program we will go through your achievements, your goals, your practice, and how you're getting on. And then in the 3-month program we will do a breathwork session each week, as well as covering the other topics you would like, so that you can reach your spiritual pinnacle, the place where you would love to be, to stand to welcome the rest of your life, to go out and be who you really are, knowing and feeling that completely and fully, which is the whole point. That's what we're trying to do, isn't it? And you get email support in that time. So most of the work is done on Skype, and that's the way that I like to work. And it's also the way I like to do a call with you. If you fancy working with me, please let me know. Because I'm not on the Google Hangout this time, I'm not able to go through all the facts and figures, but of course please contact me if you wish to, or they're all on my website, so you can have a look there. The website is www.catherineholland.co.uk, and just to be clear, Catherine is spelt Catherne. So, if you'd like to work with me, please book up a direction call so that we can see which way you'd like to go next. And you can book it on my online diary, which is calendly.com/Catherine Holland, or you can email or send me a personal message on Facebook. My Facebook name is Catherine Holland, Indestructible Soul, and I'd be very glad to talk to you. And to finish off, I would just like, if I can recall it, to say the next webinar will be on Wednesday, the 29th of July, at 10 o'clock in the morning in the UK, which will be 5 o'clock in the morning in America on the eastern coast. But this time, for you in Australia, it will be 8 o'clock in the evening, I think. At least it should be a civilised time, so that if you would like to listen live and type in a question for me to answer on the actual webinar, I'll be happy to do so, and that would be lovely. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you ever so much for listening. Goodbye.